Our brain is one of the organs that needs the most glucose because as we think and make decisions and all of that, it takes a lot of energy. So our brain is one of the parts of our body that needs the most glucose. But the glucose cannot leave the blood unless insulin has unlocked the door for it. Insulin resistance means that the door lock is kind of sticky. It's like someone came along and put some chewing gum in the key lock so that when insulin comes along with it as a key, sometimes it can get the door open, but sometimes it can't.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. So this is Grand Rounds for March 18th of 2025, and our guest is Nurse Lucia Tiffany. So welcome, Lucia. So glad that you're here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
So Lucia, tonight, the topic for her presentation is bacon or broccoli, the real secret to lasting sugar control. So let me tell you a little bit about Lucia. She is a leading authority in diabetes reversal, coaching, harnessing cutting-edge science to empower professional women of faith who desperately want to quit their blood sugar meds and reverse their prediabetes. So welcome, Lucia. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Jackie. I am just really excited to be here, and I'm glad for every single one of you that have shown up this evening for Grand Rounds. This is awesome. So we're going to be talking tonight about the real secret to lasting blood sugar control. So the reason we titled tonight's presentation Bacon or Broccoli is that I know some of you have probably heard about some very popular approaches to controlling blood sugars that involve eating lots of bacon, sometimes lots of broccoli as well, but it is often an approach that we call the keto diet. So for those of you that may not have tried it or maybe aren't sure what it is, just to make sure we're all on the same page, the keto diet is a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet that is designed to induce ketosis, which is a metabolic state where the body uses fat as its primary energy source. So a lot of the media and a lot of the advertising around this approach emphasizes the fact that you are fat burning in ketosis. And so as many people that are struggling with metabolic issues, obesity, metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, and diabetes type 2 especially are also dealing with obesity, that's like, oh, this is a great way to lose weight and control my blood sugars. So usually we're looking at a high fat, low carbohydrate, sometimes keto. So there are people who are doing a pretty low carb diet, but maybe not low enough to be in ketosis all the time. But it still means they are eating more protein and fat than carbohydrates. So to understand what this diet is doing, I want you to understand there's 3 macronutrients. There's only 3 sources of calories or fuel for our body. That is carbohydrates, fat, and proteins. So if your carbohydrates are real low, it means most of your calories by default have to be coming from protein and fat. And so we see that people on this low carb diet often will eat significant amounts of greens, but also a lot of their calories then are coming from fat and from protein. So you'll see them consuming a lot of things like meat and fish and cheese and eggs and butter, because all of those are the foods that are high in fat and protein, but low in carbs. There are some very serious risks long-term to this approach. One of them is that we accelerate aging of all of our body systems. How many of you want to get old quicker? Let me see your hands. Not interested? No. You want to age? You want to like have more wrinkles, be more tired, have more arthritis quicker? No. Okay. So let's take a look at the flip side of the low carb, high fat protein approach to nutrition in blood sugar control. So what we see, we now have some studies. The keto diet's been around long enough and been studied that we now have some research results about the longer term impacts of the keto diet. So some things that we have seen in these studies is that people often see their LDL cholesterol go up. When LDL cholesterol goes up, you're at a higher risk for cardiac disease, heart disease, atherosclerotic buildup, which of course increases your risk for things like high blood pressure and strokes. And so cardiovascular disease risk goes up when you're on a keto diet. Also, we find that you don't actually see an improvement in insulin sensitivity unless there's also weight loss. So unless you're getting the weight loss, a low-carb keto diet doesn't actually improve your glucose tolerance or insulin sensitivity. We're going to explain a little more about what that means in a minute. So there's also a negative impact on gut health. Now, we're starting to hear a lot more about gut health. People are paying a lot more attention to it these days than they used to. But we know that the entire health of our body is very closely connected with the health of our gut. And the low fiber content in a keto diet actually impacts the diversity of the microbiome in our gut negatively. And that will impact our health negatively long term. So there's a number of different areas in which a keto diet does not help us to have better health. So let's talk a little bit about insulin resistance so that you understand what's actually going on in your body with different approaches to blood sugar control. Insulin resistance is a condition where cells in your body are less responsive to insulin, and it leads to elevated blood sugars. Insulin resistance is actually a key factor in the development of type 2 diabetes and is also associated with a variety of metabolic disorders, starting with metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, Alzheimer's. All of those are related to higher levels of insulin resistance. So as we look at other nutritional approaches to controlling your blood sugars, we find that plant-based diets have a lot of advantages. Now, a plant-based diet is a diet that emphasizes whole, that means unrefined, unprocessed, plant-based foods, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes, and whole grains, and minimizes or eliminates animal products and processed foods. And the science has now shown us that these plant-based diets are associated with better insulin sensitivity, so it's addressing a root problem with diabetes and prediabetes, and it reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes. And so they have done careful studies that have shown that as they really do close measurements for insulin resistance and fasting insulin levels in individuals that were overweight, already carrying extra poundage, that this was a diet that actually made a difference in how insulin sensitive they were, which means that little mechanism with the insulin in the lock of the cell key, it means the insulin's working better. So you don't need as much insulin to take care of the normal levels of carbohydrates in your diet. But when you consume carbohydrates in their natural form, like they come in fruits and whole vegetables and whole grains and beans and nuts, when you consume your carbohydrates that way, they work very differently in your body than when the carbohydrates have been refined or processed. So let's understand something about blood sugars. First of all, a lot of people understand now that we need to know these numbers, right? So you know that your fasting blood glucose is important to check if you have elevated blood sugars. What a fasting blood sugar is measuring is the lowest levels of blood sugar in a 24-hour cycle. After an overnight fast is usually most people's lowest number, not always. And that number is often used to diagnose diabetes and prediabetes. But there's another number, which is your hemoglobin A1C, which is actually looking at your average blood sugar levels over the past 2 to 3 months. And it's a really key indicator of your overall blood sugar control. So fasting blood glucose tells you at this point in time, this is what your blood sugar is. The A1C tells you over the last 2 to 3 months, this is what you're averaging. So the numbers together can give us some very good information to understand whether or not we're controlling our diabetes well. So a priority for any of you that know that you're on that path, maybe you've just had metabolic syndrome, Metabolic syndrome is when you're getting more belly fat, your fasting insulin levels are going up, maybe your blood pressure's starting to creep up, but your blood sugars might still be completely normal. That's metabolic syndrome. Then if that's not reversed, next you'll usually see prediabetes, which means your A1C starts to creep up, but your fasting blood sugars are usually still pretty normal. And if you don't reverse it at that point, it often will turn into full-blown type 2 diabetes, where both your fasting blood sugars and your A1C are high. So when we address insulin resistance, we're addressing the root causes. And so focusing on increasing that insulin sensitivity and decreasing inflammation is much more important than just your numbers from hour to hour. Choosing a lifestyle that will actually decrease insulin resistance will promote your best long-term health. So how many of you would like to know the 6 pillars for using lifestyle to increase your insulin sensitivity? And this applies to everybody. Whether you have had any metabolic history issues or not, improving insulin sensitivity is something that will decrease your risk for the top 16 killers in America today. So it'll decrease your risk for cancer. It'll decrease your risk for Alzheimer's. It'll decrease your risk for heart disease. It'll decrease your risk for high blood pressure, for diabetes, for prediabetes. All of those things are decreased as you implement the 6 pillars that I'm just going to give you an overview of right now. And I also want to make it clear, some of you came in after I said it, if you're a type 1 diabetic, this also applies to you, because the more insulin sensitive a type 1 diabetic is, the less injectable insulin they need. And the lower your level of injectable insulin, the fewer complications you will have long term. So improving your insulin sensitivity is key to a long life with decreased risk of the type 1 diabetes. So I like to use this acronym of CHOICE to help you remember the 6 pillars. So I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So the C, first C, stands for choice. Most people do not realize how powerful your personal choice is. As you choose to make healthier choices in your life and commit to them and create a plan, that's the C to the third, those choices can make a huge difference in your outcome. Think about my grandmother who lived to be 96 and wasn't taking blood sugar medications anymore, or my uncle who lost his sight and 2 legs before he died. The difference was their choices, not their genetics. The H stands for hydration, what I call the quality quantum cup. And yes, I made that up, but because I like how it sounds. And that means that's the amount of water that's needed to optimize your health. Quantum comes from a word that means the smallest amount of energy or physical property that can be involved in an interaction. So what we're looking at here is making sure you're getting enough water to optimize your health. Optimizers, that's the O in choice, dial down health distractors with what I call the peacemakers. So these are things that impact your metabolism and help to optimize metabolism. They impact your nervous system in ways that work together to decrease inflammation in your body. Because at the root of insulin resistance is inflammation. Those two things are inextricably linked. And as you decrease inflammation, it will improve your insulin sensitivity. So these are some of the things that can improve your metabolism, support your nervous system. So I call them optimizers. So it can be things like specific essential oils or supplements or herbals that actually support your metabolic and nervous system in ways that help you to relax or deal with stress better, or just give you the underlying support that will help your body as you're implementing the other 5 pillars. Pillar number 4 is inner balance. This is S to the 4th because there's 4 things that are included in here. One is stress and emotional management, making sure you're getting good quality and enough sleep, using schedules to your advantage because your body clock, when you optimize your body clock, it optimizes your metabolism. And then spiritual safety. I believe that the spiritual part of our being is also important and must not be ignored, because when we feel spiritually safe, it helps us, especially with these other 3 areas, the stress and emotional management, the sleeping well, and scheduling also. So those are the 4S secrets. The fifth pillar is complete nutrition, and that is learning how to build the best plate to deal with your individual health challenges. So even when you're on a completely whole food plant-based diet, there are certain things that can help you with controlling your blood sugars when you already are dealing with a challenge around insulin resistance. So which categories of foods you emphasize, which ones you have smaller portions of, all of those go into really designing your best plate so that you can enjoy the best metabolic health. And the last pillar is exercise and understanding the 3 R's of exercise, getting the right kind of exercise at the right time in the right amounts. So those are lifestyle approaches that help us to address these root causes of diabetes and prediabetes. And so when people look at that, I like to tell them, you want to know where you're starting from, because not everybody is in the same place. And so if you're thinking, well, should I apply pillar number 1 or 2, or which one should I do first, or which one's more important, or do I need to do them all at once? It can be overwhelming to address all 6 at once. And so I think it's really important for you to know for yourself, what is your priority area? And that's what I call your GPS to health. You know that if you get into a car and you're going on a road trip and you plug in your destination on your GPS, it will help you to plan the route to get to your destination. When you're looking at health, your destination is your health goal. But how to get there? Well, that's the GPS. And the first thing you need to know for GPS to work is, where are you starting from? And that's why I designed a special tool. It's completely free to you. And I want to give you the opportunity to download that. You can just point your phone at the QR code. It'll take you right to that site. Or you can go to my website, and it's right at the top of my website. And here you see how to contact me. This is my email address. My website is just www.luciatiffany.com. And you can also access this free tool from the website page.
All right. Well, looks like we are done for the evening. Thanks, everybody, for attending. Lucia, thank you so much for being here and presenting tonight.
Oh, it was great to be here. And it was nice meeting all of you. And I just want to congratulate all of you that showed up tonight, because you're showing up for your own health. And, I really believe that health is wealth, and it comes by choice, not by chance. So you made a great choice to show up tonight, and I just want to encourage you to keep moving forward on your journey to your best health.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Bye.